discussing Nikola Tesla and the pyramids of Atlantis with T.S. Caladan. Alexander Light, Humans Are Free reports via Rise Earth. 1. You've done a lot of research on Tesla, the pyramids in Atlantis. Among those subjects of research, which did you find the most fascinating and why? I'll go through them and say what excites me about each. I don't believe Tesla was one of us. Look what he's accomplished. We'll never know his full extent and influence since incredible devices and principles have been suppressed by governments. He was discredited and taken out of Western textbooks. The public does not have access to Tesla's many missing patents, such as particle beams, flying discs, and even time machines. Now, what do you think Tesla's Philadelphia experiment was? He inspired the Superman story from early 20th century. It was called the Superman of the Industrial Age. A literal alien created our modern world. With a little study, you may discover he came from Venus. Venus is not what they tell us. Well, isn't that something? One of the videos I uploaded today had to do with declassified FBI files stating that Nikola Tesla was from Venus and dropped off here to Earth and given to this couple in Serbia who turned out to be, Mr. and Mrs. Tesla turned out to be his quote-unquote parents. Now, why were those documents classified in the first place? Very strange. But anyway, as one of my viewers said, it's a very tall tale. I agree with him. A very tall tale. So Venus is not what they're telling us. So what is Venus then? And we go on with this article. I've had the great privilege of speaking once on the phone to his secret son, Arthur Matthews. History does not record Tesla having a son, but you find that he did, hidden safely away in Canada. Arthur was my pen pal for a few years before his death in 1986, and he told a very different story of Nikola than our usual books and films. My article, Son of Tesla, can be read online with 2 personal short letters where Arthur stated he enjoyed my research and did not argue against my view of this amazing man, meaning Nikola Tesla. Arthur co-wrote a book with Tesla called The Wall of Light, Nikola Tesla and the Venetian Spaceship. The only time Tesla ever wrote non-technical pages and revealed personal experiences. I read the original in 1969 of what Arthur Matthews wrote about his own experiences in those sections of the Wall of Light that pertain to him. And I can tell you emphatically, absolutely, that there were no references to Jesus in the original. Whomever was inserted those passages in the book is grossly dishonest. I know that Matthews was a deeply spiritual man who did not believe in conventional religions, period. I know this for a fact. Instead, Matthews was taken to a place on Venus where he said he met with a group called the Council of Nine. This Council of Nine could tell whether he was telling the truth. He was asked to describe the earth sciences as he understood them. He described biology, chemistry, all of the physical sciences as he knew them. When he described physics, the council objected that he was untruthful. Matthews said this was the earth's understanding. This council told him this was completely wrong and was vociferous in its objection to its basic principles. As for the spiritual and religious stuff, the council told him that they were going to give him the secret to life at the end of his several meetings with them, and the secret was love. Matthews noted in the original I read that this comported with the message of many of the earth religions. That was the extent of reference to Jesus. The book makes Matthews sound like a born-again Christian, which he was decidedly not. Further, the meetings with the Venusians from Venus. The meetings with the Venusians have been dumbed down in this book. The original text was far more exciting. For example, Matthews described his initial meeting with the Venusian couple. The man was about 650 plus years and the woman about 550 plus years old. He exalted their beauty and serenity. They grilled him during meetings over 2 years about highly detailed aspects of Tesla's work before ever going any further with him. Matthews made a point that there was no way anyone could have known about these highly technical aspects of Tesla's work because Tesla had not disclosed them with anyone. He had not discussed them with anyone but Matthews in letters between the two. Those letters were in Matthews' possession when Tesla died, and not the U.S. government, who declared all of Tesla's private papers classified, quote-unquote, within days of his death. The U.S. government did not know about Tesla's special relationship with Matthews at the time. How do I know this? Matthews tried to contact the U.S. government to show them highly technical aspects of Tesla's work during the 1950s, and the U.S. government blew Matthews off as a Canadian kook. Matthews also contacted the Canadian government, who thought the same thing. So Matthews did the next logical step. He gave the information to the Russians. As I wrote in the beginning of this review, I read this document in 1969. It made such an impression on me that I have never forgotten its contents. I can still see myself reading the original. I can still feel how I felt when I read it. I was shocked, actually, to see part of it in The Wall of Light 37 years later. By the way, I can't review the Tesla written parts of this book. I have no way of knowing if they've been altered. The Matthews drawings appear somewhat genuine. The book is worth it for the part for Tesla. Read the Matthews account with a jaundiced eye and be suspect about the sentimental parts of it. Matthew was not a sentimentalist. I'm giving 3 stars to what should be a 5-star read because of the grossly inaccurate editings of Matthews' writing in the book, obviously done after he died. The Wall of Light, Nikola Tesla and the Venusian Spaceship is available for purchase on Amazon. Now, I'm one of few people who understand Tesla's historical significance, which came from a powerful realization that the scientific work of this Superman explains ancient mysteries and pyramids and the Atlantean world grid, and it challenges all history. This goes back to the 70s and my strange marriage to a very psychic woman. In 1974, she channeled 13 points on the globe, map still with me, only a few days away as I write this, and in a trance state said this was Atlantis, main power station on a large continent in the Bermuda Triangle area, and 12 smaller substations that formed a world grid. I certainly did not understand the principle involved with this power back then. Most importantly, 4 of the points on the globe were completely unknown to the best investigator in 1974, Russian site in Sayan Mountains, Yonaguni, ruins in Brazil's Amazon and Canadian Indian image in Badlands. Other sites in the grid of 13 were immediately recognized, such as the Great Pyramids, the Great Pyramid, Incas, Stonehenge, Easter Island, while lesser-known ones were found with some study. Tassili, Zimbabwe, New Delhi, Pilar, Alice Springs, Australia. These were the cradles of civilization, and we originated from these 13 sites at the exact same time. Reason for unlucky 13? The ancient power grid was Atlantis, and Atlantis was a higher, super high-tech Eden, or world metamorphosis, world metropolis. 2. How do you think Nikola Tesla, the pyramids, and Atlantis relate to one another? The power I mentioned, 40 years later, is more understood. I was asked on Coast to Coast about it, and if it was anything like our electricity. And it was exactly electricity, only wireless, for the very same appliances we have and much more that Edgar Casey saw. Beyond wireless devices, freely powered, the force was also used to power every kind of vehicle imaginable long ago. Tesla planned with his 20th century world system to set up an EM field between the positively charged ionosphere and the negatively charged ground, whereby any appropriate receiver or antenna on any vehicle could provide all the energy necessary to power the ships, as well as factories, buildings, and residences. The power was also magnetic. This is a natural electromagnetism utilized with a ground contact. Power does not fly through the air, as we've seen radio illustration, but flows through the ground and is between the rocks and the trees. Yoda would tell you. This is why every inch of ground was utilized, sacred to the ancients, which means the pyramids, the obelisks, great statues and spheres, totems, steles, etc., all had electromagnetic purposes, powered by the electrified ground for utopia. Time destroys the greatest of civilizations. The main station with the prime power pyramid blew up long ago. The Atlanteans, actually us, mastered what we have not been permitted to publicly develop today. We have to be very careful how we use the EM energy. I believe the world grid, this wireless power network, was reconstructed again and again, but never as great as the empire that preceded it, demonstrated in ruins of survivors. Pre-Egyptians, pre-Incas, Egyptians, Incas, Toltecs, Olmecs, Mayans, Aztecs, Anasazi, Cahokia mound builders, and down to Old West American teepees. What purpose did the pyramids of Giza, especially Cheops pyramid, serve, is the next question. In my view, the Great Pyramid served as a backup reservoir, a reserve system to the main power transceiver, or prime pyramid, out in the Atlantic Ocean, which is now sunk, of course. And the reason is its special location. Location, 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 they say. Besides perfect alignment to the directions, the Great Pyramid is positioned in the exact center of all land masses when you consider a missing Atlantean continent. If we extend its north, south, east, west directions out from Giza, we have created perfect equality, equally sized quadrants of the remaining land area on the globe. Giza is the perfect center for a new main power station. If anything happened to the big one, something disastrous certainly occurred, which explains the myriad of legends and physical evidence of Atlantis, not as the Great Deluge, but a destroying continent. Read Edgar Cayce on Atlantis. I never refer to the GP as a Cheops pyramid, since the phenomenal EM power station had nothing to do with the reign of Cheops. The structure was already ancient when it was broken into and painted symbols imagined in error, misguided in error, dedicated to the pyramid of Cheops. To me, it was wrong in placing Atlantis in the Mediterranean or ever associating with the flood of only 5,000 years ago. To me, it's the Great Pyramid or the Giza Pyramid. There is flood damaging on the GP, the Great Pyramid, but the age of not monuments, these stones. Utility poles are much, much older. Notice how spectacular the GP, the Great Pyramid, is compared to the other two at Giza, with its above-ground, intricate inner chambers, along with special geophysical and astronomical info incorporated in stone that other pyramids do not contain. Let's presume the same fate occurred to New Atlantis, Incas, and Egyptians, as with earlier and later cultures. Main power plant was destroyed and rebuilt utopia, and to rebuild utopia was no longer utopia. Imagine no power anymore through the ground, stranding Easter Islanders like before and everyone else around the grid substations because of the destruction of the Giza transceiver. This is our long history, as it has occurred over and over again, that much later recently fell to the dark ages of ignorance and primitiveness. Now, the Greeks were far from the inventors of science, math, and medicine, etc. They inherited old knowledge, history, and memories from much earlier events and superior civilizations. Gods of the Romans and the Greeks were real. They flew machines in heavens. They were the Atlanteans, super Indians that eventually fell in downward spirals of lesser cultures and technologies over more time and over a longer period than we are taught. After the super pyramid on Atlantis continent was destroyed due to the coming of war, the next pyramid, Prime Pyramid, was constructed at Giza, perfect location for a power beacon to the rest of the planet. Then repeating war took out the GP, the Great Pyramid, and a replacement pyramid was installed, not as great. The cycles of war and the same reincarnated forces destroyed that pyramid in time. And it happened again with another age, much later, and a third attempt that a world power network with the prime location at Giza that beamed out magnetic electricity. With failure of the third pyramid, the Egyptian delta no longer was the center of the world or prime radio city. Let's fast forward to survivors of New Atlantis at a much later time, examine the different angles of pyramids at Teotihuacan and of the Toltecs and Mayans at even later periods. Different angles on lower American pyramids were because the entire configuration of planetary energy was different. Many thousands of years had passed between the Mayans and their ancient predecessors, the Egyptians. Pyramids are lenses. They focus on natural electromagnetic energy. They are collectors and antennas or power pumps, power stations. Pyramids and the ground system of obelisks, totems, stelae, standing stones with ground contacts are in reality utility poles, the ancient superversion when compared to our pathetic, barbaric, wired society of today. I was honored to hear from one researcher who contacted me at a time when I needed to hear a bit of credit. I related to what he saw on TV and he thought of me. Quote, "You have more believers out there that are quietly listening. In time they will change and see the truth in your words, just like the 13-point Atlantis grid. As far as I know, you said it first long before the mainstream media even half acknowledged it. It was shown on the Ancient Aliens TV series on the History Channel. They now present the idea that the pyramid's pylons are like powered transformers. It was you who first said that." Quote, "When do you think Atlantis existed, and why do you think so?" Answer, I encourage readers to look up my research under the name Doug Yurchi. Since published, I got by my pen name of T.S. Caladan. Anagram is @Scandal. I believe my channeled source from the 70s divorced in 1977 as to the age or time of Atlantis. Atlantis was never one colony or city or one continent, but was always a world grid of planetary power. The whole electromagnetic network of prime power stations that fed the 12 substations at ideal grid points, often original space colony of Earth base. One at Tiahuanaco, Bolivia, surveyed Earth was Atlantis. There was only two general types of humans on the planet, Indians or Egyptian descendants, and Lemurians or Asians, whose empire fizzled out in the Pacific as Atlantis rose in the Atlantic. It's no mystery that what happened to the Egyptians and Incas. These very old cultures destroyed themselves. Incas survived because the survivors became or recycled into the much later Toltecs, then Olmecs, Mayans, and later Aztecs, to later mound builders and American Indians in the East. Egyptians recycled into the Sumerians, Babylonians, and then down to the Greeks. We can see how lesser and lesser weights of monolith were seen in Inca walls, such as in old Cusco, Peru. These were not from the same time period. Bottom rows of megaliths were in the hundreds of tons each. That was what we could transport at that time. It was destroyed, virtually vaporized, and walls were replaced at a later time when people could only move lesser stones. The time came when stone was no longer used at all, and incredible earthen structures were made by Hopi, Anasazi, and Cahokian mound builders, far more advanced than their descendants who built teepees in the Old West. My sources told me we landed here at Tiahuanaco 60,000 years ago. If you study the 13 simultaneous cradles of civilization on grid points, a few of the areas contain legends of the date 60,000 years ago, such as Tassili and in Alice Springs and in Russia, ancient nuked areas, like all deserts, some with dolmen bomb shelters. In Australia, also with advanced prehistoric sites, the ancient memory is called dream time, of course. Before nuclear was clearly described in sacred books of early India, I placed the sinking of the Atlantis continent around 12 to 13,000 years ago because Casey said so. There was a nuclear age 8,000 years ago and a world flood 5,000 years ago whose purpose was to reduce the hotspots of radiation after the nukes and to rid the world of genetic monsters or the madness that cloners created, an age later remembered in Greek myths. Pegasus, Centaur, Minotaur, Cyclops, etc. were real. Attack of the cyclones, indeed. A great question is what happened to paradise, or what screwed everything up in Atlantis and in later advanced empires. In utopia, bad thoughts, bad intentions, bad actions do not happen. Police were never needed. With time, there were great changes. Supermen and superwomen were no longer gods and goddesses. Humans created new generations. They were different and did not hold on to old ways of peace and love. Edgar Cayce spoke how the ancients became material and militarists and more associated with the physical world and political and power control. In a decent society with high tech, there are good and legitimate reasons to clone, such as for medical reasons if you need body parts. How about simple workers that clean the house like controlled robots? Look how much work could be gotten done. Now you can see how cloning techniques could be introduced and used effectively in utopia. There's only one problem. What of body parts and the clones themselves? Do human clones have rights, or are they property of the cloners? With cloning as part of your world, as it is today, secretly along with other unbelievable scientists, you can understand how it could get out of hand. What about armies and cloned super soldiers? This was the primary problem, the abuse of freedoms. Casey's book mentions the things were used in Atlantis in many battles over the things. Edgar Cayce did not have the word clone in his vocabulary, but understood that they were before our scientific world. Now, number 5, what are the Earth's energy lines, and are they related to the ancient concept of ley lines? Answer: Earth's energy or aura, electromagnetic grid lines or ley lines, seems to be all the same. It's the EM power that moves a compass needle naturally right there in the ground. Some land has greater concentrations of this energy than other places, and it probably registers on certain devices. Crop circles have high EM concentrations, for example. Isn't Sedona known for its ley lines, or places where vortices of energy intersect with feelings of peace and people? Aren't a few ancient and secret skies known for their healing properties? And in the waters, a few ancient and sacred sites, yes, where people used to go for pilgrimages there. Now, I have even heard that certain Incan ruins produced terrible, horrific feelings among visitors, while other places had wonderment and awe to the same visitors. Indian burial grounds, maybe the sites were where prehistoric greatness happened, as well as awful atrocities, mass annihilations in the land, still contain those vibrations. To me, the electromagnetic force, the forces in nature that are always there, around us throughout our spinning planet, that moves a compass needle, that even rain down upon us from space, are like a flow. The flow is a movement of zillions of photonic particles or charged quanta. A very smart scientist should be able to tap into any flow like harnesses the power of the waterfall in Niagara Falls. It's not magic, it's just science. We should do our best to demystify ourselves away from errors in traditional religion, but also away from traditional misconceptions in science and history. Question 6. What type of technology built the Great Pyramids of Giza? Answer. This was the age of supermen and superwomen, gods and goddesses, ancient astronomers, or your ordinary flying Indians, East Indians also in the Vimanas, commonly known as flying carpets. It's not hard to imagine or to unlock your memories of the distant past. Now consider the far future. It's the prehistoric past, not different. Retrograde technology over many cycles of Indians who always attempted to rebuild the broken, shattered wireless world grid, Tesla's principle, because that, by far, is the most efficient way of doing things to acquire and distribute electrical power. Tesla's son told me the New York Tower, called the magnifying transmitter, his Radio City, failed in the early part of the 20th century, not because J.P. Morgan pulled his funds. Tesla was always rich after his AC. His first powered tower in the modern system was placed on Long Island to provide wireless electricity to a large population. The problem was the winds of the First World War were in the air. Germany could have captured the powerful transceiver, nearly 200 feet tall, turned or focused the buildup of resonant power with such an intensity that the Earth could be split in two. If used positively, radio broadcasted electricity could have completely changed the human race in the 20th century. No depression or world wars, we would have once again been on the threshold of utopia, but it was the right idea at the wrong time. The Wardenclyffe, New York installation could also have destroyed the Earth as a doomsday weapon of fantastic proportions if used the wrong way, other side of force. We have to be very careful about how this ancient energy is used. We would not have a wireless world, according to Matthews, until war is no longer in our hearts and we are much less military-minded. We have a long wait, Arthur, but you'll have a long wait, but the future is a time worth the wait. Arthur also said Atlantis and Tasman technology will one day return in the very distant future. Now, the question of what kind of human society or type of technology builds mortarless pyramid power stations and also transports massive monoliths in the thousands of tons is a people who have the ability to master anti-gravity and master powerful lasers. Was that too simple? Ed Leedsacklin, who single-heartedly put Coral Castle in Florida, the greatest example of moved monoliths in the United States, had the secret, and the secret is anti-gravitation. Many methods have been federally suppressed. Not magic, but a technology covered in Tesla's patents. Who is to say we don't have some of the wonders of Tesla technology outside of the world system today? They may have been developed for the privileged elite, the covert few, on top of the social pyramid, and not for the many of us struggling down here at the bottom. Number 7, do you believe that our planet will experience big changes soon, and if so, why? I look at it in a different way. Haven't we heard that again and again, like how they always say we'll be on the moon soon, but somehow we just don't get there? You've heard that in the 1950s with the fearful threat of nuclear war, and then later with all kinds of grave coming disasters. Armageddon, apocalypse was potential major disasters that could have been far worse in recent decades but didn't really happen. What about the Manhattan Project? where Teller and his mad boys truly were unsure that the first atomic detonation might start a chain reaction that would not stop and burn away the atmosphere? We'll all go ahead and do it anyway. Remember, party like it's 1999, and destructions that were possible to happen then, they didn't happen. Nuclear exchanges did not occur. My beloved Edgar Cayce was wrong in his inspired book Earth Changes, that claimed dramatic land changes on both American coasts would happen, as well as a big, unexpected watering away in the middle of the country. In today's world of chaos and hell, could we be extremely lucky? Now, research YouTubers and interviewers of the late Al Bielek, born Ed Cameron, a brilliant man who worked with Tesla on the Philadelphia experiment. The PE was Tesla's baby, in fact. Al jumped off the Eldridge destroyer in 1943 during the infamous experiment. Tesla washed his hands of the PE because feds would not pay for a one-point band that would safely secure or anchor the sailor on board through hyperspace. You see, folks, in an attempt to create a cloaked or invisible ship for the military during the Second World War, they created a hyperspace vortex, a warp in time. Al, or Ed, and his brother Duncan jumped off the test ships when the experiment went way out of control and some died. The true brothers also jumped into the future and they returned. The story is utterly fascinating, and also the story of Montauk in 1983 is equally unbelievable, as the other end of time, rainbow and frequency, was created. View Preston Nichols, Stuart Swerdlow, and Al's real stories, all there for you on YouTube. Now, there are some of the most brilliant people who will tell you that the strange events in the British-made movie The Philadelphia Experiment are actually basically, without the love story, true and were really about Ed and his brother. In the movie, a bridge in time was created 40 years apart, and the planet nearly came to a major disaster in the 1980s. Al saved us from violent land changes that did not happen. Supposedly, only insiders know that the PE film ain't all fiction. How many times have otherworldly Men in Black type disasters almost occurred, but were averted? Maybe much has happened out in the open and been covered up again. I keep up with conspiracies, right or wrong. I think they're 90% correct, not 90% wrong. And it's really the hard, brave work of conspiracy factualists. Love whistleblowers who go against rough grain and speak out even under threat of death. Look at how many who experience the truth were suddenly and conveniently silenced. Maybe we should believe the opposite of everything media and authorities and politicians say. There could be huge changes in the coming years. And if you see an alien attack soon, I'm serious. Don't be fooled. It's probably Project Bluebeam, a holographic false flag to control you, placing you in a state of fear, and so don't be afraid. The real enemy is not out there. It's in here. The calls are coming from inside the house. A few twilight zones were about the issue of fear and paranoia. Don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. Gain knowledge, and knowledge is power. Deprogram yourself by learning and seeking the truth openly, and question everything. Certainly everything from the authorities. They are not on your side, gang. Study the Philadelphia experiments, Montauk and Secret Stargate, time tunnel experiments conducted decades ago, and to this day, if you dig, you'll discover. You might find we are on and in an extremely fortunate timeline, one of many realities, a reality that numerous great minds beyond Cayce, such as Nostradamus' time traveler, predicted mega cataclysms would happen by the year 2000. Thankfully, the horrific disasters did not occur at this timeline. Were they delayed? Are they coming? Or should we thank the heavens and that hell was averted altogether? And number 8. What other types of fascinating topics have you researched that you think are noteworthy to mention right now? Don't be too sure you know the truth about anything. Don't be too sure you want to find the actual truth. Finding it is kind of a curse because you are compelled to tell others out of excitement of what you have discovered, only to be alienated, rejected, and ridiculed for your pursuit of the truth. Expect the unexpected in all things. Real truth is unbelievable. For example, we did go to the moon, but what we saw, a few billion of us, or what they presented to us, was faked, and they could not take a chance on something going wrong, and so, like about everything else these days, you'll discover it was fixed. We did not see the good stuff, the real landings, the ancient structures, the evidence of old life and present life on the moon and Mars. View Jay Wiedner's YouTube channels and research. They got Stanley Kubrick to fake the moon landings we saw with the same project techniques we see in The Apes in 2001. Stanley, the greatest artist and director, was able to do anything he wanted with unlimited budgets after he helped the feds. He was also led into the special privilege of secret societies. Wiedner has pointed out the extraordinary clues that Kubrick placed in film imagery of the series of his later films, where Stanley appears or hints of his crimes and deceptions, admits to being a part of the elite or tempted by them, and then agonizing because of his decisions. This was big news to me, an artist and super film fan, and one who regarded SK as a huge hero. Now to see amazing clues in his films, especially how The Shining was about Stanley faking the moon mission, even to the point of the boy who wore an Apollo 11 sweater throughout the film. In Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick explores and exposes the secret Rothschild world of rituals and sacrifices, and then what happened? Stanley was eliminated and Spielberg finished and drastically changed both EWS and also AI, or artificial intelligence. I do not blame viewers and readers who are reluctant to realize the ugly truths, such as what I've learned through YouTube of Satanic Hollywood or the truth to your favorite celebrities. It's a hard pill to swallow, so much refusal to see or believe. But to the secret scientists who are fascinated with the world around them and open to controversies and new ideas, I suggest two of my articles, Celebrity Suicides and the very important 10 Conspiracies You Never Believe Are Conspiracies. Would you be shocked to discover Paul McCartney is really dead? He was killed in 1966 and replaced by a taller lookalike, even more naturally gifted in music. I must be psychic, because in February 2015 this story came to me, World Mysteries. I later found out Ringo admitted to Paul's death in an interview at the exact same time I thought to write the whole story. And number 9, what are you currently researching, and what can we expect to see from you in the near future? 2 articles I'm extremely proud of were posted in the field of theoretical astronomy. Actually, there are so many answers to space and our solar system in a few pages, your mind will blow. I have worked on these ideas for decades and can still be traced back to my contact through a very special psychic back in the 1970s. Many of the concepts came directly from a higher source of information I had access to between 73 and 77. And the 2 articles, a must for anyone interested in space answers, are New Order for the Solar System and Black Holes, Quasars, and Infinite Big Bangs. Would you believe one cosmic event, great explosion of 5th planet, where a gap is today, explains comets, asteroids, Kuiper belt objects, and of course, shooting stars? Would you believe quasars are the exact opposite of black holes and explain the mystery of where matter just disappears to in a BH? It comes out a quasar or a molecular level. Did you know there are infinite Big Bangs? How about that a team of people behind the screens operates Stephen Hawking's like a puppet show? Now, it's unbelievable. The world is unbelievable, and we've had an unbelievable prehistoric history. What's that say about our future? What I have done lately, since my 400-page sci-fi novel has been published by TWB Press, is put my theories and results of decades of research into stories I'm great with, fiction and direction of stories. When I write, I'm fixated, almost possessed by my muse, and write very fast, like automatic writing. I've often wondered what I have tapped into when I am in a zone. Am I challenging or viewing the remote past? Why am I so obsessed with history and the future and discovering the answers to big questions? Was I back then? I'm sure I was many times, since I'm a big believer in reincarnation. Another truth I was told by my source was real. Am I remembering Atlantis? Did I build parts and pyramids and use the magnetic energy? I think so. I've discovered that it was more fun for me to write fantasy fiction or colorful, imaginative stories that contain real things I've learned rather than write a traditional documentary style. Many of my short stories are T.S. Caladan, are online and contain real treasures of insight and intuition conducted within wild stories. Now, my novel is called The Continuing, and it's the epic of a parallel world where the entry galaxies mimics what has transpired on Earth with the rise of Hitler and wars enslaving monetary system, and a hero from the outside comes to put things right. This is my Hobbit and establishes a parallel universe of continuums, and by next year 2 smaller books should be published, sequel and prequel, which will complete my trilogy. It's these next 2 books were the lifetime's worth of research into Atlantis, Tesla, and pyramids emerge. In book 2, Son of Zog, son of our hero, is the first story. In the first story, discovers his density by touching his father's giant quartz crystals. We flash back to other worlds, ancient Earth, and the boy discovers historic records of the quartz, and etc. He talks here about his various other endeavors to write stories and things. It's interesting that post-Atlantis empires were not as great as what came before them, looking what is seen in Caladan ruins on Mars, a mile-long human face and many structures similar to Giza, only on a much larger and grander scale. Did the great Indian race originate on the 4th planet? Would our Martian utopia make the greatest Atlantis empire pale in comparison? Patterns repeat as well in the architecture from Mars to Earth. Question 10. Any last thoughts you want to share with us? Yes, a few more things on the pyramid energy which we should realize is the same as what Tesla worked with. If you held a fluorescent light in your hand near a Tesla coil, it lights up without wires via radiant energy or induction. Now magnify that a few million times, and you might see how a whole city could be powered by one oscillating tower. Notice how structures in the ancients in many cases have a similarity of main complex surrounded by smaller structures in the pattern. Pyramids, standing stones, statues, and stone circles were not arranged or shaped for their art value, but stand for function, just like a modern centrally located power plant of wired AC steps down the electrical power to smaller substations for local use. So did prehistoric Indians. Also, the transceivers or powered substations operated over a central range, just like a radio station weakens the farther you are from the transmitter. This was why you need another station in the grid to boost the signal, so all your wireless systems, devices, and vehicles still operated over a wide span of distance. No civilizations were around the mysterious Costa Rican spheres. I believe they were placed there to merely carry or continue to signal so vehicles could remain powered over isolated areas. We cannot have Tesla technology today. Scientists know how to do it, not permitted because it's magnetic energy, and you can't put a magnet on your computers, can you? Every scrap of your technology has come down before we installed a wireless EM system. The primates were not mentioned. They are a misconception. We did not come from a primitive form. The various so-called primates were all at the same time and the same level. That could not be if Darwin was right. Darwin is wrong and always has been. Primates were the clones and were not ape-like at all. They simply had smaller brains for similar functions. You would not want to program your servant or soldiers with a lot of brains. You'd manufacture smaller-brained humans who'd be more obedient. Cro-Magnon has larger brain cavities than modern human beings. The large brain called Cro-Magnons were the Indian cloners. These were the gods, we were the gods, or some played gods to less complicated human tribes. If you want to understand the Old Testament better and believe it because of the science and technology within the pages, then view my article, High Technology in the Bible by Doug Yurchev. One more unique way of the Atlantis description is that it was not destroyed by the evil Belial forces, according to Casey. The truth, bad guys did not destroy or shatter the continent swallowed by the ocean in a day. Good guys engulfed a self-destruct switch. The logic was sound. The Tesla in principle radio power broadcasted to all. Everything was powered by the towers, even drink, rebel, Belial forces that developed over time and threatened to consume every drop of goodness from what was once a paradise. It was better to blow out power so no one had power and the world had to recycle, rather than a new movement of pure evil that nearly took total control. Another interesting oddity of the millions throughout the solar system: what the hell are spinning on Saturn's north and south poles? You could check out the astonishing photos, CBS 1i, at the South Pole and six-sided time vortex in the North Pole. Maybe there are bits of truth in the movie Interstellar. Thank you, Joe, for the Pyramid Center, for the chance to broadcast my own personal views of life, the universe, and everything. Sincerely, Trey Caladan. The Pyramid Center is an amazing scheduled sanctuary deep in the heart of the California mountains near Big Bear. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.